Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to introduce my guest today, Dr. Jennifer Nash. Jennifer is a board-certified executive coach and consultant helping leaders and organizations get better at the human element of business. Prior to launching Jennifer Nash Coaching and Consulting, she held executive and leadership roles at Deloitte Consulting, Ford Motor Company, Kelly Services, and Electronic Data Systems throughout her 25-year career. Jennifer frequently contributes to Harvard Business Review and serves as an executive, leadership, and career coach for the University of Michigan. Her forthcoming 2021 book is entitled Leading with Heart, the Human Element of Business. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jennifer Nash. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Really, really happy to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. You're joining us from your home in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Is that right?
Near there. I'm actually in Dearborn, Michigan, which is just down the road.
Okay. Well, I live in Boston. I wouldn't know the difference, but I'm sure it's somewhere near Zingerman's, right?
Yes.
That place I get that interesting catalog from. So anyway, we are here for Work from the Inside Out, and clearly you've had a really interesting career. And I know there's a lot more that you're up to these days, but let's start at the beginning. Tell us about some of your earlier years, maybe some of the things you dreamed about as a child, or some of the things you studied earlier in your career, and how those things led you to where you are now.
Yes. So if I go back a ways and look at my formative years as a child and growing up as an adolescent, I actually had a lot of training, formal training in the arts. So I started classical ballet at the age of 3, and I also started learning piano at the age of 3 as well. And I took classical piano lessons all throughout my younger years through high school. And I also studied foreign languages starting in high school. So I was always very active and engaged on like maybe the right side of the brain. And so when I got to college, my dream was to go to Julliard and be a classical pianist. That was my dream. And so, my dad really wanted me to have a stable career and something that I could support myself with financially. And so I ended up combining my love of foreign languages with business, which I really knew nothing about, which was a completely different world and used a different part of my brain. And so having that formation on the art side and then having this training more on like the left side of the brain really helped me shape and see and think differently than a lot of the people that I came in contact with in my early career, and definitely when I got to business school. So now, looking back, I see the influence that, having that unique training in the arts and sciences has helped shape how I choose to lead and how I also choose to coach and consult. Later on, after I finished my MBA, I went back and got a PhD. And so I had additional training, in the social sciences and behavioral sciences. And so combining, that unique combination of art and science background has really shaped and formed who I am today and how I operate and how I run my business.
Wow. So say a little more about the intersection of those things. I'm just curious how that played out as an undergrad. bringing, you said you studied languages and business undergrad. How did that, what was your major for undergrad? And then when did you get your MBA after that?
Yeah, so I had a triple major. It's my undergraduate work.
So you were a slacker.
Yeah, so I had an international business undergrad. I graduated from undergrad with 3 degrees. I had an international business degree. I had a bachelor's in French, and I had a bachelor's in German.
Oh, wow.
And throughout my undergraduate studies, I actually lived in Germany for a year.
Oh, wow.
So I was able to combine, that knowledge of, I would say anthropology in a way, right? I've always been a student of human behavior. So it was very interesting for me to go and live in another culture and observe the behaviors of people and observe, the words that they chose and the actions that they took and the way they thought and how that all differed from my worldview growing up in the United States. So I took all of that background into my first role in the corporate world, and quickly found out that I just really thought very differently from the people that I was working with in corporate. We had different maps of the world, right? We had different backgrounds. And what I found was that combining that liberal arts side and, the dance and the music and the foreign languages with, the harder sciences, the accounting and the finance and, all of the things that go on in the business world really gave me a unique way of looking at things. And as I learned, throughout my career in the early years, I was always more drawn to, why people did the things they did and how they did them and what made them do that. What was their motivation? What drove their behavior? And so when I got to business school, a little bit down the road, I really found the discipline that fit me. I finally felt like I found a home in the business world. And that was in this area of management and organizations, which I had never heard of before until I got to MBA school. And what I found there was that this was the discipline that really dealt with people. And that was what got me excited. That was what I was always seeking to understand better. And I placed a high value on that. And I feel like through my training in, art and music and dance and foreign languages, that the human element was what always attracted me in business. I wasn't necessarily concerned about EBITDA or, helping someone figure out a better way to build a widget. I was always more concerned about how is this impacting people? What is the impact going to be? What are the motivators that they have? How can I connect that? How can I connect the impact of the work and the greater good to what motivates someone and help them see the value in what they're doing? So going through MBA school, that really helped me find where I fit. So when I got out of MBA school, I ended up switching over to professional services, which is where I went and worked at Deloitte. And I worked in their talent and organization group in human capital for nearly 10 years. And spent time, doing change management work, doing communications work, doing leadership development work, succession management, strategic change, essentially helping people develop and evolve and grow into the best versions of themselves. And that was what I was so passionate about doing. I loved that type of work. And so when I finished my PhD, which was focused on executive coaching, and it was very cross-disciplinary, so I was able to integrate a lot of this different way of thinking and the map that had informed my world into my PhD research. I realized that, this was the time for me to go out and do the work in the way that I felt would impact people and have the most value for them. And so I chose to start my own business at that point and leave, my 25-year career in industry and professional services.
So I'm curious, over the years that before you maybe pinned down a little more clearly where your interests were, was there a period of time where you maybe wondered if you should be in the business world? Because it sounds like you felt different maybe from the other people you were working with, and clearly they hired you, so they knew that you probably thought about some things differently. But I could imagine you were at Ford Motor Company, Kelly Services, electronic data systems. These are companies where perhaps there were more sort of business heads at play, and probably even at Deloitte. And you said several times already, I thought I had a different thinking style than a lot of the other people around me. Was that isolating for you? And did you wonder, maybe I should be going somewhere else?
Tammy, that's a great question. I never felt like I fit in the business world. I always consistently felt like I was a square peg that, HR or someone else was trying to fit me into a round hole so that I would have a label, or I would have a name, or I would have a box that I fit into. And, at heart, I was someone that was, dancing down the hallways. I was singing in the bathroom. I was, speaking foreign languages with my friends overseas. Like I wasn't, it wasn't a place where I felt like all of my talents and my capabilities and the value that I brought to the table could be fully realized. And it's just because of the culture in the different workplaces I was in. It wasn't necessarily through the fault of the people. It's just when you're outside of the status quo and you're an outlier, the system will tend to reject you. Yeah. And that happened to me quite a bit because I never could really find that beautiful combination of how do I bring all of the talents and skills that I have to bear on this work that I'm being asked to do, which requires people around me to think a little bit differently in what's possible. And so I never felt like I fit.
And yet ever. It sounds like people wanted to try to make it work, that there was some desire on their part, and perhaps even yours, to keep you in the fold and want to make that work.
Yes, I think there were some times where there were leaders or individuals who also maybe had, a different way of thinking and a different perspective. And then they were more open to creating what could be a potential job fit, or what could be a way for me to bring the skills and talents that I had into the organization, even if that didn't exist currently. But again, those leaders were few and far between, right? Yeah. And so to find someone that's willing to think us outside of the box and go outside of the cultural norm and maybe go against some of the unwritten cultural rules in an organization is very difficult, as you know.
Yeah.
I think, my very first job out of undergrad was because I spoke foreign languages. So I was working for EDS, which had the GM account to support French, Canadian, and Mexican automotive dealerships, service departments. And so I was working with their service techs to help them diagnose and fix the diagnostic terminals that were diagnosing the vehicles. And I did all of that in French and in Spanish. And so that was a way that I started to combine, some of these skills. So going from there, that was the same kind of job I had going forward at Ford Motor Company for a while. And then I was brought into a group at Ford where I started to learn about systems dynamics and systems thinking. And how all of these cross-disciplinary pieces are integrated. And that was what really started me on the path of realizing that the way that I think and what I have to bring to the table is very different, and there's value there. Yeah. And that leader in that group took a chance on me because I was different from the normal person that they would have hired or offered that position to. So that was something that really started me thinking, oh, maybe there is a way that I can integrate this. I still don't feel completely comfortable, but maybe there's a way that I can bring value to others. And maybe there's a way that I can find a little bit more meaning in the work that I'm doing for myself.
So I'm curious, the years that you spent, not to harp on this too much, but the years you spent always feeling like a little bit on the outside or a little bit different, because you were in some, very traditional, corporate environments.
Mm-hmm.
Was there kind of your dad's voice speaking in the back of your head, telling you, these are steady jobs, even if you feel a little different, these are good, steady jobs, stick with it, stick with it? I mean, was that part of what, I'm kind of wondering, like, other than being able to use your facility with languages and possibly, having a good leader or two who recognized something in you and was able to make things work, it sounds like there was always this little thread that was running through you in some of these roles where you were still going, oh, I just have this little itch. I just can't scratch it till it stops itching. I'm still a little uncomfortable. And yet there's this part of you that's just sticking with it, and trying to make it work, always trying to make it work. And, just, I think a lot of people can relate to what we're talking about here. And that's why I'm sort of focusing on it. So I'm just curious, what made you sort of stick with it all those years? I mean, I know you went back to school a couple of times, and, obviously for the PhD, it must have been for several years. But, what else do you think, kind of had you kind of stick with that sort of steadfast approach?
So I would say there are several things that kept me sticking with it. The very first thing would be, the belief system that I was brought up with, right? Mm-hmm. That you don't quit and that you keep going, mm-hmm. and that you just stick it out, and that a job, you're lucky to have a job.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of these beliefs that I had, were formed, in my childhood, mm-hmm. because of, the beliefs and the comments that, my parents had and would make.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know anything different. I didn't know that, when you think about Maslow's hierarchy, right? And you think about like the basic level of the hierarchy, food, shelter, clothing, right? I was meeting those needs with my work, obviously, because I was making money. What I didn't realize, but I always felt, was that there was something missing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what was missing.
Okay.
But I knew that something was missing because I could feel it. I wasn't passionate about what I did. I wasn't excited to get up to go to work in the morning. But I had grown up with the belief that, if you have a job, you're lucky to have a job, and it doesn't matter what that job is.
Yeah. A lot of us grew up with that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? That's just the belief that was handed down. And so I never questioned it.
Yeah.
But as I went through my career, I became increasingly unhappy and increasingly dissatisfied and unmotivated because I wasn't getting, that higher level of Maslow's hierarchy out of my work, right? I wasn't getting that self-actualization. I wasn't getting that satisfaction. I didn't see an impact that my work was having. I didn't feel that I was making a difference and that I was leaving this workplace or these individuals better than, I had found them. And so that really came to a head for me when I found the work that I like to do, which was, helping people grow and evolve and thrive and be their best versions of themselves. Mm-hmm. That was what I found fulfilling. That was what I found meaningful.
Yeah.
And that was what was motivating for me.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time to realize that it was okay that this belief no longer worked for me, right? That it was, a job is a job and it should be enough. That I had to shift that thinking and reframe, what I now know is a limiting belief, right? To be something that is empowering for me and that would serve me going forward in a better way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that your story, as with a lot of unique elements to it, there's something about your story that also is so relatable, I think, to an enormous number of people. There's another part of your story that we haven't brought up here that won't be a big shock to people, but you're also a competitive ballroom dancer. And that's something you do to this day. I'm wondering if, I don't know if you were doing it at that time already.
Mm-mm.
You weren't. Okay.
No, I grew up dancing. Like I mentioned earlier, I started, my mom put me in ballet classes at 3 years old. So
That's
I started in ballet at
fun.
3. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I have all the costumes still from back then. I have a little lightning bug costume where like my tutu lit up and, it's very cool. And so, it's just those memories of growing up in that way. Like, ballet is it's a training that gives you discipline, right? It instills, it helps you understand your body. It helps you understand how you can align the different pieces of yourself. And at the same time that it is, a physical movement, it's also an emotional expression, right? And so for me to combine those two things in that way was extremely powerful. Yeah. And I danced I took lessons for probably, I would say 10 years or so. And then my parents moved. And they weren't in a position to be able to take me to that, dance studio. And so I had to stop those lessons. And that was sad. And then I didn't dance for a really long time, honestly. Like I hadn't danced for, like a couple decades, actually.
Wow.
And then I came back to it in 2015 and just rediscovered the power of being able to have a physical movement that allowed me to integrate all of the emotions that I was going through, right? And to be able to express that through movement without words was like finding my way back home to myself.
Wow.
And so in that moment, I knew like this is something that I have to integrate back into my life.
Yeah.
This is something that I've been missing that I didn't even know I was missing. And it was a way to find myself again, after a really difficult divorce. So having all of those pieces put together, and being also very competitive and being someone who likes to achieve things, competing in dance sport for me was a way to really combine a lot of the different elements of me that make up who I am. And it has manifested itself in, my new business as it's something that I offer as a workshop. So I offer a leadership lessons from the dance floor workshop. Now, in pre-COVID times, this is really great, right? Because we can get together and we can dance and do these things. And so right now, obviously, that's a little bit on pause because of the fact that we can't get together in person and dance. But once, we're past...
Zoom.
There's a difference to it, right? You can do it on Zoom, but it's very different. And so I've chosen to just, put a pause on that until we're through this COVID period and we can get back together in person safely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about piano? Do you still play piano?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I do. I don't practice as much as I would like right now because being an entrepreneur and starting a business takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
And the free time that I do have, I'm spending on training for my next competition. So like I said, when COVID lessens, I'll be comfortable to go back to a competition dance floor. But I think, the one thing that getting back to dance made me realize is that having the ability to express myself through physical movement and through that physical movement, recognize and acknowledge and process the emotions that I have was something that I wanted to integrate into my coaching work.
Wow.
And so taking a coaching course for certification earlier this year that combined this ability of neuro-linguistic programming and somatic coaching really just, for me, felt like I was coming home, right? With the ways that I had been trained in my childhood with, dance and music and foreign languages to the business training that I'd had over the course of my career in the MBA, and taking all of that and putting it together into one integrated holistic piece and helping other people use the power of physical movement and the insight that acknowledging and naming and recognizing and feeling those emotions has, and putting that into a wrapper of, if you integrate this into your work, right? Because you are a whole person. You're not a separate person at work and a separate person at home. If you realize and let go of that belief that you have to be two separate people and you can only show up in one way at work and you're different at home, then what other possibilities can be open to you?
Yeah.
Because now you've tapped into your body's wisdom. You've tapped into your emotions. You've tapped into movement, and integrating all of that. How does that help you be the best version of yourself that you can bring to the world? And that's how this has all come full circle for me. And I would never have been able to tell you that, 20 years ago. I would have had no idea.
That just landed right in the middle of my heart just now, what you just said. It just so resonates with, I love the way you said that. I couldn't repeat it exactly the way you said it, but I love what you just said, because I think we do, and I don't know why we do this, but we do separate ourselves. We try to divide ourselves up. This is the me I am at work. This is the me I am at home, as if somebody wrote some book of rules that we're supposed to be this separate and distinct person, and that, don't bring the office home. Okay, I understand there's something behind that, but it doesn't mean that you can't be yourself at work, or that you can't be some part of yourself from the office at home too. And I think this is why I tell people all the time, I don't know if I'm ever going to retire. I like what I do. Why should I stop doing something I like?
Right.
Maybe it'll change, but it's, I assume it will at some point, but I love what you just said, because I think that for us to try to be more integrated as people, as individuals, and not be so distinct and separate would be, I think, a much healthier way to live. Mm-hmm. I mean, we all need a break. We all need a rest. We all need to change things up here and there. No one's saying that that you should work all the time. So when you go home, you should keep working. It's not about what you're doing. It's about who you're being, right?
Exactly. And, we put so many conditions on ourselves in the workplace, right? As you know, from being in corporate, there are unwritten cultural rules when you walk into an organization, right? Of how you dress, of how you think, of how you look, and how you act, and what you say, and what you don't say, and what you really mean when you say something if it's not what you really meant to say. Like, there's all these different rules.
Yeah.
And so when I say that I didn't feel like I fit when I went into the business world, is partly because of that. Yeah. Here I am, like, bringing my whole heart to my dance and to my music and to foreign languages, and being my authentic self in how I show up and how I interact with people, and sharing and connecting and building those relationships with them. And then walking into the business world and all of a sudden feeling like I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
Well, why don't I feel safe?
Right.
Well, because people are acting in a weird way.
Yeah.
And I have to sort of diagnose it and figure out, why are they acting that way? Well, is it a pattern? Let me observe that. Like, what's going on? And so as you watch and you listen and you hear, you discover that there's this whole nother language that's being spoken. You discover that there's this whole nother way of being in the world.
Yeah.
And it requires you to sort of shut off a part of yourself so that you can safely act in that space. Yeah. Because if you're vulnerable and you display certain emotions, or you display maybe something that you're thinking that's not like politically correct, whatever it could be, right? That it becomes, there's a punishment for that in some way. And so that's why this book that I'm writing is called Leading with Heart, the Human Element of Business. And I think prior to COVID, this book was important. I think now, given COVID, it is essential.
Yeah.
And we as leaders need to help others show up with their whole selves at work.
Yeah.
And we can't help them do that if we're not doing that ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. We have to walk our talk. Definitely. I think there is there's some element that is happening now that wasn't happening before, with all the Zoom calls and people showing up, holding meetings from their own homes and their cats walking across the screen and their dogs in the background, their children in the background. I think there is a level of humanness that's showing up, whether people want it to or not. And I think that's a good thing, actually.
Yes.
It can be an interruption, but it is just sort of pushing the point a little bit that, we're all people.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I think it does level the playing field just a little bit, but I also think I can imagine what it must have felt like those early years for you, almost not feeling received as a person, like feeling almost like you'd open your mouth or you'd behave a certain way and almost like a wall would go up in front of you. And we're not talking about that these were bad people.
Yeah.
They just didn't know what to do with you.
They didn't. They really didn't. And they never knew where to put me. Like they never knew where to put me in an organization because I didn't have a traditional background. So, yes, I studied business in undergrad. It was something that I thought would be marketable, right? And my dad was really insistent that I be able to support myself. And so, I needed to study something that I felt could, land me a job and earn me some money so I could put a roof over my head.
Right.
And so I combined, the only thing I could figure out at that time to combine with, a background in dance and music and foreign languages was business. Yeah. And international business at that, because I really like traveling. Right. And so I wanted to go all over the world. And, so I do think given how the impact that the coronavirus has had around the world,
yeah,
and so many, negative things have happened because of the coronavirus. I do think that there are some positive things coming out of that. And one of those is what you mentioned, right? That we carefully constructed the self and the person that we wanted others to see prior to COVID, right? Mm-hmm. That was the person that they saw when they walked in the office.
Right.
That was the person they saw getting out of the car in the parking lot, right? But with the advent of coronavirus and organizations scrambling to enable work from home and create remote work opportunities, the walls of that carefully constructed persona have come crashing down.
Yeah.
And it's enabling us to see the human pieces of the people that we work with.
Yeah.
When you see someone's child on a Zoom, you see that person in a different way, right? When you see someone's cat walk across the screen, you can't help but laugh. Like you can't control that, right? But now it's becoming de facto. It's becoming accepted that we have these little pieces of humanity that show up in our daily interactions in the workplace. And I think that's amazing because that moves us even closer on that continuum to being the human people that we are at work and showing up with our whole human selves.
Yeah.
And for leaders, leaders are human, right? They're human beings just like we are. And leaders are leading humans and leaders are leading humanely. And so this book is talking about all of these different things and what we need in a human leader going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's very exciting. I can't wait till the book comes out. I think it'll come out right when people need it, although they probably could use it right now.
I know. I've been working to get it out. So I have this deadline is next year. It's Q2 next year.
Well, so tell us, first of all, tell us about your doctoral work and what that entailed and how that has led to the work that you're doing today.
So it was one of my dreams. I guess I would say it's a bucket list item for me, that I earn a PhD. And early on in my working career, I had thought that I was going to do a PhD in French. And that didn't work out for different reasons. But I knew after I finished my MBA that I wasn't done with my education. I just love to learn. So I'll never stop learning. And even though I have a PhD, I might go back and get another one. So, but for this PhD in particular, I was very interested in deepening and broadening my understanding of emotional intelligence and how that helps leaders lead. And from a coaching perspective, from a leader as coach perspective, how can we take the elements of coaching and apply that to leadership for this human leader that we need going forward, right? So I went to Case Western Reserve and I studied with Richard Boyatzis, who is the guru of emotional intelligence. He was my dissertation advisor and my chair. I was very fortunate and grateful to have him in those roles. And so we worked closely together on developing research that was original, that filled academic gaps in the research, but that it also filled, industry knowledge gaps. And so my research focused on the coaching relationship in particular, and the role and responsibility of the coach and the role and responsibility of the client in creating that connection, that rapport, that relationship. And we know from research now that the key determinant of the client's outcome is the coaching relationship. So being able to understand the factors that go into that, we would say in academia, the antecedents, the factors that go into that and the competencies that are needed from the coach are what contribute to that relationship. And so some of those are emotional intelligence. Some of those are a combination of, different capabilities. But we know now, based on the research that I did, and it just got published actually, that the key determinants of the coaching relationship rely on the relational energy, the shared vision, and the compassion. And that's actually demonstrated on both sides by the coach and the client. So understanding the levers that you can use to help your client have a better outcome in what they're looking for is helpful in determining, ROI. It's helpful in determining value. It's helpful in determining the business case for coaching. And on a personal level, it impacts the client and what their goals are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. So once you were done with the PhD, you then decided time to open up shop.
Yeah. So by about that time, I'd been in consulting and professional services for about 10 years. And I liked the work that I did. As I mentioned before, I was helping people grow and evolve and thrive. But I really wanted to be able to do that in a way that I felt best served the client. And I didn't want to have all the bureaucracy of a huge organization behind me to do that.
Right.
I also wanted to spend a greater percentage of my time doing that kind of work. Where, in the position I was in before, I was spending a lot of time on other things that weren't that. And so I made the very difficult decision to leave the corporate world, which for me was also at the same time of letting go of that limiting belief that I had had throughout my growing up, that you're just lucky to have a job.
Right.
And so thinking about the safety of having that job, which was, an amazing job, right? 6 figures, full health insurance, full benefits, pension, everything,
right,
to the risk of going out and becoming an entrepreneur on my own and dealing with all of the things that brought up for me. That was it was a very much a year of growth for me. As I worked through those decisions, it was a roller coaster at times of emotion. But ultimately I felt like I was put here on this earth to help other people grow and evolve and thrive. And I needed to do that in a way that was going to help me evolve and grow and thrive.
Right.
And so I turned in my resignation and started my business, and I haven't looked back.
So when did you actually start your business?
So I officially launched my business in December of 2018.
Okay.
So we're coming up on almost 2 years now.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I know that you're doing a variety of things now. I know you're coaching, and you've been writing your book.
Yes.
And also doing a podcast.
Yes, I am getting ready to launch my Human Element of Business podcast. Super excited about that. Like, I've always secretly wanted to be Terry Gross. So like, just super excited to be launching a podcast and, to be able to speak with amazing leaders, from all different disciplines, and have them on the podcast to like, just give that cross-disciplinary look at leadership and how humanity is the common thread that runs through that.
And when are you expecting that will launch?
So I'm expecting that will launch also in Q2 of 2021.
Okay. We'll be looking for that. And what we'll do is we'll have all of this in the show notes. And as things launch, the show notes, stay intact. So as things launch, we can then down the road even include the links so that even if this episode airs before things launch, we can then insert the links later on so that as things update, people will have access to that information through this episode, which would be great.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. And I know that you also want to offer my listeners a free gift as well.
I do. I would love to do that. So I have on my website a success toolkit. And the success toolkit is a little different than what you would normally expect from a someone working in leadership space, because it integrates the different adult learning styles. If you're a visual learner, if you're a kinesthetic learner, if you're an auditory learner, with different types of resources that come from different fields. So obviously there are things from leadership field, there are things from management, but there's also things from dance. There are things from, creative aspects of different fields. And so I've really worked hard to pull together a resource toolkit that will be helping other people gain that kaleidoscope lens that I have of looking and seeing and thinking differently so that it helps impact their performance.
And where might they find this lovely kaleidoscope?
So they can go to my website. It's drjennifernash.com.
Okay.
And if they look under the resources tab, they will see the success toolkit listed there.
Oh my goodness, that's great. I love the way you describe that as a kaleidoscope of resources.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So Jennifer, before we wrap up, I just want to make sure people have a full picture of everything that you're up to these days and are offering. I think there's one other thing for sure I wanted to mention was you have a course out there right now that's on the Knowable. That's KNOWABLE. It's a Audible listen only course. Tell us a little bit about that. It's on Knowable, not Audible. It's on Knowable.com. Tell us a little bit about that course. That's a membership based online courseware platform, and you are one of the instructors there.
Yes. So as part of the coaching that I do leadership coaching for executives, and I also do executive career transition coaching. So one of the most frequently requested sessions that I do for executive career transition coaching is on discovering your why. And so this course at Knowable is entitled Discover Your Why.
Oh, wonderful.
And what I have found especially since COVID hit, is that people are in the space of reflection.
Yes.
They have had time to think about the work that they're doing. Does it align with their inner values? How does the external environment reflect that or not reflect that? And how do they want to spend the next chapter in their career journey? And are they getting the meaning and value and impact that they're looking for? What are they passionate about? And so because I've had so many requests for that type of coaching, I wanted to be able to bring that to a broader audience.
Wonderful.
And so I created this course at Knowable to step people through that process of identifying what is it that they're passionate about? What is it that they want? How do they want to have an impact? what is their purpose,
Yeah.
right? And what are their values?
Yeah.
And then taking a step back to say, now that I understand what all of those are and I have clarity, how do I then work to align that with my external environment if it doesn't align already?
Oh, I love that. I'm all big on the why. If you know your why,
Yeah,
the what's become a lot clearer. But I think
exactly.
now it's especially daunting and confusing for a lot of people because the what's seem to be changing every day.
Yes,
And
they
it's really
are.
hard to figure out, what direction to go in because, everything seems to be a moving target. But
Mm-hmm.
I love the sound of the course. It sounds great. And
Thank you.
we will also have links to that in the show notes as well. And I really encourage people to take a look at the offerings that Knowable has, and especially Jennifer's course. And second to that, the course that I have up on Knowable, because I'm also an instructor there, and that's a communication course. But check out Jennifer's course. That sounds really interesting. So I'm tickled to hear about your story and all that you have done in your career. You've persevered through feeling that discomfort of not fitting in, and yet taking all that you've learned over the years and really taken it and learned so much from it, and taken that learning, and now you're helping other people to move through their careers and their leadership challenges and triumphs. It sounds like you've really made the most out of all of it and found your comfortable spot, and yet also where you can be challenged best too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I love, one of the things I find so rewarding and the most valuable for me out of the work that I do is helping people really get reconnected with who they are.
Yeah.
And what they want and where they want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being able to do that through, somatic coaching, being able to do that through, neurolinguistic programming and helping people create empowering beliefs I find that so rewarding. I know how much of a difference it has made in my life. And I believe that we're moving into an era where, coaching used to be a punishment, right? It used to be something that was used to, check the box before HR let someone go, right? It used to be something where it was to fix someone because they were broken in some way. And what I think is so amazing now is that coaching has really become a perk. It's really become a way for organizations to level up and say, hey, we see that you have great potential. We want you to evolve and grow. Let's get you an executive coach so you can become the best version of you.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think COVID has accelerated that trend.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that continues because people don't need to be fixed. They really don't.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't.
I'm with you. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Jennifer. This has been a very rich and really interesting conversation. You've given us a lot to reflect on and a lot to think about.
Well, thank you so much, Tammy. It was so exciting for me to be here, and I'm just so grateful that you invited me to be on the podcast. And I hope that for your listeners, that they're able to take away something of value from our conversation today.
I have no doubt they will.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Jennifer Nash. It was so interesting to speak with her to learn about her professional journey. What is your key takeaway from our interview? If you are interested in any of the resources or links mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them on the blog page of my website at www.tammygoulerloeb.com. Just look for episode 104. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Do you feel a little stuck? Get specialized group and individualized support, insights, and accountability from a brilliant mix of professional women in a safe, non-judgmental, creative space. Join one of my small hybrid mastermind coaching groups, starting on a rolling basis. You can learn more at https://bit.ly/navigating career change. If you were inspired by this episode with Jennifer, please share it with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd love to read your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find through my website at www.tammygoularloeb.com/podcast. Just click on the Apple Podcast button and follow the instructions provided there. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. And who knows, maybe you'll be my next interview on this podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.